everyone, and welcome to Accessibility Talks, or AlleyTalks, the monthly virtual meetup where we chat about digital accessibility, inclusivity, and usability. Each month, we invite a speaker to present a topic, and afterwards, we invite the community to ask questions and participate in the discussion. Hello, I'm your host today. My name is Kat Shaw. I work at Lullabot as a lead engineer with a focus on front-end development and digital accessibility. I live in Perry, Kansas, which is 1 hour outside of Kansas City, and I use the pronoun she, her. Unfortunately, there was a conflict.
Actually,
what?
Check it out.
Oh, he's here.
I'm going away then.
Okay.
It's working.
Blake just showed up.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So there's not a conflict. So let me continue talking, and we'll have Blake present today. Whew.
Sorry about that. My Chrome, I had to do a bunch of things to get it working with this, but I'm here.
Oh, heart attack.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get too far into the talk, I want to let you know that we have live transcripts available at bit.ly/AlleyTalks. So that's A11y Talks live transcript. You can also use the QR code on the screen, and you can look for the link in the chat. You can also enable YouTube closed captions if that works better for you. Let's take a moment to remind everyone that our group seeks to provide a friendly, safe environment. We require all participants to adhere to the Accessibility Talks Code of Conduct. This includes speakers and hosts, those watching on YouTube, and folks commenting on social networks. And this applies to community interaction and events, verbal questions, and chat in the text channels. The code of conduct can be found on our website at alleytalks.com. So that's again, A11yTalks.com. All participants should be able to engage in productive dialogue and should share and learn with each other in an atmosphere of mutual respect. I want to give a huge shout out to Agile Collective for becoming a bronze sponsor of AlleyTalks. We appreciate your support, so thank you. We want to see your organization recognized as a sponsor of AlleyTalks, so please visit the sponsorship page on alleytalks.com to learn more about our budget priorities and goals and how your organization can support us. I want to give a shout out also to our AlleyCat Club members. Thank you so much for your monthly financial contributions as well. Want to see your name in the list? Visit the sponsorship page on alleytalks.com to learn more about joining the AlleyCat Club. If you've got questions, we love questions. At the end of the presentation, we'll take some time for Q&A. If you have a question for our speaker during the talk, there's a couple of ways you can do that. During our live talk, type your question into the YouTube chat window. It can be busy in the chat, so please start any questions with the letter Q or word question so it's easier for us to find during the live event. Add the hashtag AlleyTalks, that's A11yTalks, TALKS, to Mastodon or Twitter. So today we have Blake Bertuccelli. Is that how you pronounce it, Blake?
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, cool. He's going to speak on open source. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You are an open source advocate and founder of Equalify. And fun fact about you, Heath Ledger, rest in peace, was your mentor during high school filmmaking days. Is that right?
Yep. And I have a little photo behind me of Heath Ledger. I'm pointing to it right now, but he was a great mentor, and I grew up almost on Hollywood Boulevard, so it wasn't that I had some kind of special superpower. I literally just grew up where people were making movies, and he happened to be a guy making movies. I haven't even seen most of his movies myself, but wow. He was a great mentor. That's
great. He was a great person, so it's definitely missed. So we're going to go ahead and try to get your slides on. So if you want to share your screen.
Great. And should I do it through there's a Google Slides option here?
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, great.
I would do it. Just share your screen,
I'm
I
just
think.
going to share my screen now.
Mhm.
Here it comes. And let's see, open source accessibility now. There it is.
Okay, add that to the stage. There you go. So I think everybody's there. So we'll go ahead and let you have the floor. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Apologize for keeping everybody on their toes. Technology is always changing, and sometimes when you open a meeting for the first time, everything that was good yesterday changed today. So I apologize for that. I'm Blake Bertuccelli Booth. I am a ardent accessibility proponent. I've been working with open source and accessibility for most of my professional life. And in the last few years, I started an initiative called Equalify. And Equalify's whole purpose is basically just to create open source accessibility tools. This was a project that I started after I left a company and decided to spend a year-long sabbatical just doing what I wanted. And then I had the happy privilege that what I wanted to do was just to code accessibility tools. So Equalify, has all sorts of tools, and we'll kind of go over a little bit of Equalify tools today. But what I really want to talk about is open source. And I'm going to be sharing slides. And the slides I'll be referencing in my talk. So if you're using a screen reader or something like that, don't worry. I'll be explaining everything that's on the slides. And happy to take any questions afterwards to provide more clarity. So my talk today is called Open Source Accessibility Now. It is an activist statement. I've given this talk before at High Ed Web, which was a really great conference that I went to last year in Buffalo. And it was a very similar talk to a giant room full of higher ed experts. And this room was packed. I can't tell you how much. There's probably 1,000, maybe more folks in this single room listening to this talk on open source accessibility. And afterwards, I thought I was galvanizing the forces. I was hitting all the points. And then everybody who was working with accessibility in higher ed or even outside of accessibility in higher ed would be super excited about what I was talking about, because I was basically telling people we can use these tools that a community created to do the things that you're doing, that you're paying lots of money for, and you're throwing your data into. And I gave this a passion talk in Buffalo, and afterwards, maybe 2 people came to me. One of them was a priest, funny enough, but 2 people came up to me, and they said, "Yes, we're on board. We believe. We didn't think about open source this way." But I was actually really disappointed because I kept talking to more and more people in the auditorium after that talk, and nobody seemed to really care about open source. And so I have a slide up here that says why open source matters. And there are 3 key points that I look at when I care about open source. So one of the first things is that the open source code is available free to use. And when we use the word free in the open source world, we're not saying free as in a free beer. We're saying free as in free speech. Like, you have a privilege to use this code and look at all the code. My background, I learned a lot of the coding I did by building WordPress sites. And WordPress is this amazing open source content management system. And I had no idea how to code. I just got there. I knew that I wanted the background of my website to be a certain color and my font to be a certain thing. So I got in there and hacked it together. And that's the privilege that open source allows. You can get in there and learn, and build new technology from code that is open. So open source means code that is available free to use. The second key point of why open source matters is publishing in code ensures transparency, builds community, and pushes innovation. I can't talk about transparency enough when I talk about open source technology. A lot of security experts try to use this transparency idea against open source code, but really what we see in the living world is that When you have code transparent and open to everyone, when you can show people how something works, whether it's a cryptocurrency showing it how to work or an accessibility platform, you can build more secure systems because everybody knows how it works. And so the system is not dependent on a veil of secrecy. And when you are not dependent on a veil of secrecy, you can really build a robust, strong, secure system that is open to everyone. And so publishing code ensures transparency. If anyone says, oh no, open source code can't be trusted, there are millions and millions of government, banking, all sorts of great, giant, vital infrastructure that is built in open source code. A good open source project should be even more secure than its proprietary equivalents. The third and final piece that I think of why open source matters is access to open source applications help with legal conformance. When a organization like a higher ed organization or more usually a government organization needs to review what kind of content is, how their content is being used, they want to see source code a lot. And that's a touch and go point if you are using a proprietary service. Lots of proprietary services don't want to show you all the source code. But if you are using an open source system, you can just give the conformance office a link to the source code that's there. And they can actually look to see how their data is being used and judge it. And that is a huge privilege that open source has over proprietary other options. Now, I'm going to focus this talk around 7 current open source accessibility tools that I think are really cool that they're being used. This is not an exhaustive list. I'll link to an exhaustive list in the talk, but this is just the key tools that I think we should be thinking about and preparing about. And the kind of my guiding curatorial focus when I was developing this was I wanted to give an accessibility professional a full suite of open source tools that they would be able to accomplish their job with, whatever that job is. So the first one I want to talk about is a WCAG EM tool. This is an evaluation tool by WCAG. And again, the slides I'm showing are just talking about, have the key bullet points that I'm overviewing right now. So the WCAG EM tool, it allows you to kind of walk through how to evaluate a website according to WCAG standards. It's an amazingly easy step-by-step tool. And when a lot of people are, or when people come to me and they're intimidated by the WCAG, I will tell them to just take a page or two through the WCAG EM tool. This tool is also completely open source. I mean, it is a form, so it's pretty simple technology, but you can go in, being an open source project, you can go in and suggest changes or log errors, make feature requests, all these things. You can talk directly to the people who are building this tool. And so this tool is available at www.org/WAI/test-conformance/WCAG-EM. That's a long URL. I think if you Google WCAG EM, you should be able to find it very quickly. But I highly, if you haven't used it before and you want to generate a really robust looking WCAG report, use the EM tool. It is marvelous. And it's in need of updating too. And I hope people who are watching this, who are open source contributors, do contribute changes and issues and new features to this tool and every tool I talk about. Another vital tool is XCCOR, and I'm adding here XCCOR and Lighthouse. So XCCOR is an open source automated testing service created by DQ. It's an awesome tool. As part of my job is to evaluate every single accessibility automated test I can, and XCCOR is the workhorse that I point most people to. XCCOR is bundled in Chrome DevTools. So if you're using the Chrome browser, you can open up the DevTools by clicking Inspect on any page, and then navigating into Lighthouse. And in this like Lighthouse area of the Chrome Dev Tools, you'll be able to run accessibility tests, which largely use the XCCOR library. So it's pretty cool that this XCCOR system is bundled in to almost every version of Chrome that you use. So when people say, "Oh, we need to pay lots of money for accessibility tools, or we can't do a automated accessibility test," just pop open a Chrome, look at Lighthouse, and click Inspect. You'll be able to create a pretty good automated report. And again, automated testing reports aren't covering all accessibility errors, but it is a good summary evaluation of what you need to look at. Another cool project that I've been following is called Unlight House. So Unlight House, and the website for Unlight House is unlighthouse.dev. Unlight House is a tool to run Lighthouse, which I was just talking about, that did accessibility scanning in Chrome, over many, many, many pages. And so you can say, I want to run to get an accessibility score of thousands of pages. You can use Unlight House to do it. It's a open source tool that allows you to scan a lot of pages. And this is really handy because if you're just using Lighthouse in Chrome, you have to use it one page at a time, and that's cumbersome. Now, one downside with Unlight House is it requires lots of tech expertise. You'll have to know how to run Node and JavaScript to get it running, but once you have it running, it works pretty well. These kind of problems, like the problem with Unlight House that requires tech expertise, can be solved by just putting in issue requests and saying, I'm not familiar with Node, I'm not familiar with JavaScript, please help me. One of the misconceptions I find with open source, working with open source tools, is that you have to be technical to do it. You really don't. All you have to do is have the courage, which I hope everyone has, to say, I want to use this, but I'm not technical. Can you please help? I guarantee you, if you're working on a project that has an active user base and that's worth its salt, somebody will help you. We like to help people with Equalify whenever they say, I'm not technical, how do I get running with Equalify? There should be a way. Another project is the IBM Equal Access Toolkit and Engine. I've really liked to see how this open source toolkit for accessibility best practices works. It basically has a whole bunch of requirements that you can take into your organization and start implementing there. It also includes automated testing pieces, which is kind of like an alternative to XCCOR, that allows you to test for these requirements. And this is really made for big organizations. So if you're working with a big organization and you're starting to think about how you implement accessibility throughout the organization, I would recommend looking at the IBM Equal Access Toolkit. They've thought about a lot of pieces of integrating with a big organization. And it's something that I have brought into projects with like higher ed universities when we're trying to think about workflows or requirements that we're going to pass down the people in the team. So highly look at it. Again, this is part of an open source project. So if you have great success stories with it, or if you see places to improve, go in and help them do that. Another project that I want to call out is Editorially. So Editorially is like a spell checker for accessibility. It's a really cool project that you can run either in browser with WordPress, with Drupal, and it's tuned for editorial content. So a lot of these automated accessibility checkers, like the Equal Access Toolkit or like XCCOR, are tuned for kind of a wide path of issues, whether it's like a template issue or a user issue. Editorially focuses on editorial content. So it's really great at catching things for people who are writers, like issues with heading order would be a big one. And I love the user experience of Editorially too. It does feel like more like a spell checker, and it's constantly updated. And like all these tools, it's open source, and so you can look it up. It's Editorally or 11y, and Editorially is is it's a great project. I can't say enough about it, and it's actively developed by an awesome and very motivated contributor. Of course, I have to mention my own project, Equalify. So Equalify, I started to because there wasn't really a open source platform for accessibility. There were these checkers. There was a lot of different tools that did different things, but there wasn't a whole platform that brought all the tools together, like a Site Improve that was open source. And so I, like I said, took some time away and coded an early version of this together. And over the last 2 years, we've been developing it for more and more use cases. And so now it's generating really cool, beautiful reports. The entire code base is open source, so anybody can go in and download it and start using it, or they can use the managed service. It might be helpful for me to talk here about how these open source projects are sustained. So Equalify is sustained largely because people pay us to support Equalify and run it on our servers. We basically are a host for Equalify. Things like Editorially are sustained because people who have built it work for an organization that values it. So the person who's building Editorially works for Princeton. Princeton uses Editorially, so they're going to keep paying the person to develop it. And so there's a lot of ways to sustain these services, and we can't forget about that. One of the last projects that I wanted to go over was AltText libraries. So this is a newer one that I've been playing with. If you are, this is kind of getting into the space of if you are a coder. So if you're a coder, you can use these libraries that are built into your JavaScript or Node experience. And so what they will do is they'll quickly find alt text issues related to the code that you're working on. And these libraries, which can be called like runtime libraries sometimes, or CI integrations, they're really good at hitting at the development level any accessibility issues. And so one of the things that I try to focus on whenever I'm helping anybody get into accessibility is you really need to hit every point of that cycle of website development and maintenance. So you'll need to hit the design space with teaching folks best practices, and then you need to hit the development space by having automated tests that are attached to your project, like the AltText libraries, before you go into the user space and using things like Editorially to make sure users are maintaining best practices. But AltText libraries is a great one to get your toes into, and it's a really easy install if you just know basic JavaScript and Node. You can start running it and start seeing issues with AltText. And so I'm again asking, so like I've given 7 pretty clear tools that are great tools that are out there right now, but I'm just amazed that there are not more tools. So when I started this process of building open source tools, I thought I was just going to contribute to existing projects, which I've done a little bit. But what I've come to find is there's not nearly the number of open source tools out there that I would have expected. So lots of other things that I didn't mention today are not being covered by open source tools. There are like really important pieces of software, like detection for strobe effects that would prevent epileptic fits. Tools like that are not currently open source and maintained. And I don't quite understand why, because an accessibility professional's whole focus is on making tools or making information public and accessible to the world. And I think that we should add one more piece to that focus of making information accessible to users with disability, which is making sure the technology that is behind the tools that make the web accessible is also accessible itself. And we need to really think about building ways to publish all the code behind these tools. And it's not just so that we can build an infrastructure where everybody benefits off of free tools. The real purpose behind making more open source accessibility tools is to make tools better, and people who rely on accessibility technology, their lives better in return. And so I guarantee you, if all of the code bases that went into open source, or that went into accessibility tools, the proprietary and open source code bases were all looked at and merged together, we would get better tools. We would find better solutions for common problems. And the reason that is the case is because we would be able to then focus our development time on unique issues. So instead of me having to build a platform that is basically the open source version of various proprietary platforms, I would be very, 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 very happy to just contribute to open source platforms and contribute my resources to that. And what that does is it allows more specialization of resources into platforms, which will allow better tools. So I say on this slide, share this slide and help advocate. I really hope we ask this question, why aren't there more open source accessibility tools, so that we can get a larger movement started towards accessibility experts only using open source accessibility tools, and other companies like DQ, like Site Improve, open sourcing more of their tools because there is a larger demand for it. We really need that happening. We really need a larger infrastructure for open source tools. It just isn't there yet. The only reason I build my open source tools is because I have a passion for it. There's not a lot of economic incentive for it right now. So that's kind of my main call to action. I put together a little hashtag of #Open A11y. And this is something that I'm going to start sharing around. I'm using this meeting that we're talking at right now. I'm a hardcore humanist utilitarian, and so everything has to have a purpose. And I'm using this meeting right now to kind of organize ideas and to focus ideas into a larger movement that I hope to continue throughout the year. And I'm going to kind of bring together the movement on this hashtag Open A11y. And hopefully I and others will start to push content that will bring more tools into the open source accessibility space. So thank you. I'm finishing up right now. I like to give a short talk because I like to save time for questions and answers. If you do want to see more open source tools, I put a bunch on the Equalify website. That's equalify.app/tools. So there's a big list of other open source tools. And if you know of any others, I'm happy to add them to that list, equalify.app/tools. You can find me on X. I'm using air quotes because I also know it as Twitter, but X as at BBERTUCC. I'm on LinkedIn with my name, Blake Bertuccelli Booth, or Signal. If you want to get in touch with me, I really like Signal. It is another, it's a nonprofit project. A lot of it is open source as well. It's a messaging platform. And if you want to find me there, it's my Signal address is blake.1111, blake.1111. And so thank you so much. And I guess now we'll open it for any kind of questions that you all have.
Thank you. That was really great. I'm a huge fan of open source, so I really appreciate what you're doing and what you're advocating. So open source and accessibility are a great team. So we definitely do have some questions. The first one is, what app or website have you personally used that delighted you by providing an inclusive digital experience?
GitHub would probably be the main one. I love GitHub, and a lot of my friends and colleagues rely on screen readers, and it's a constantly changing app that has delighted me because sometimes I hate it, and there must be generations of accessibility experts behind GitHub, because sometimes I'm really angry at it, but more than not, I'm really excited by it. I also really like some of the messaging GitHub is doing around accessibility and their commitment to it. They have if I don't know exactly what it's called, but if you just look it up, they have like stories of different people who use GitHub with their assistive technology, and it's super inspirational. Like, if I want to really remember why I'm doing the work I'm doing, I watch these GitHub videos on people who use GitHub and who are passionate about coding. But yeah, GitHub is something that I constantly go back to.
Yeah, definitely. One of our members, Carrie, actually works with GitHub. Have you looked into GitHub Copilot?
I have. I'm a really big fan of, I've used GitHub Copilot, but I'm using ChatGPT for much more efficiently
Hmm.
than GitHub Copilot, and I've really enjoyed. Now I just leave ChatGPT next to me, listening to me, and I have conversations with it about questions I'm having with my code, and it's a cool process for that.
It is. It's pretty freaky when
Yeah.
you ask about 5 questions and it solves something for you. So, okay. Next question. Are there any automated tools for designers that you would recommend?
So open source tools, since we're focused on open source, think this is a call to action more than anything. I think there needs to be better automated tools for designers in the open source kind of universe. I have seen some good projects coming out of DQ that are not open source. And I'm looking right now because there is another project that I was pretty interested in called Stark. And it's not, but like I say, I'm only mentioning them because they are a team of designers building an accessibility compliance software. And they really know design. I think that they have some challenges like on messaging around accessibility. And I really hope that everyone on the call pushes them to be open source, because they're a perfect organization to become open source. And their organization is called Stark. I think the website is getstark.co. It's a beautiful platform for users not using screen readers. It's just kind of silly that you need additional support if you are using assistive technology to use their platform. But again, that's a place to advocate, and we shouldn't be afraid to advocate for greater tools.
That's great. Totally agree. So we have a question from the audience. Why organizations hold on? So I'll say, why do organizations hold on with their private coded tools, not publishing part of it?
That is a good question. I mean, I think there is a huge culture of fear in organizations, and the organizations I've spoken to say that that's not like part of their profit model. They use words around business model and profit model. But when I really start to ask them a lot of questions, because I like put on my rationalist thinking brain, and what it really comes down to is fear. And when a lot of technology or any kind of inventions in our society are kind of built to this idea that you have to protect it. And every organization that I've ever worked with or consulted with, whether they're giant organizations like Google, and I asked them point blankly, why can't we just push the publish button on this? Really what I hear is fear at the end. And I think that's a human emotion that we should appreciate and understand, and also try to communicate with, because there is nothing to be scared about. Like, it's just, I've never, I share a lot of stuff openly if anyone follows me, and it's built confidence in me. I wasn't originally a person to share a lot, and I think that can be the same with organizations. The more that you share as an organization, the more confidence you can build in your tools and your workflows because other people are reviewing it and looking at it. And then you celebrate the wins because you're sharing it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know for me, when I've thought about the idea in my head, oh, it'd be kind of cool to create a module because I work with Drupal. Then I start thinking about, oh no, then you're a maintainer, and then there's issues, and then you're getting bogged down, and then you're stressed. And I think that I would imagine that that's a common thing with people that want to contribute something, unless they have the resources, especially if they work at a company. They get nervous about that kind of thing.
And I have a question for you, I guess, around that, which is
Mhm.
that like understanding of like of oh no, I'll be stressed. Is that what? Why do you feel like you're going to have to support it?
Well, for me, it's because I have a full-time job, so you have to make sure that you have enough time to be able to dedicate to it. Luckily, I work at a place where we have like 2 hours a day to be able to contribute, so I'm able to do that. But there's other places where you just don't have that time, so it causes that
Yeah,
friction. So,
because what I found, and that was a feeling that I had a lot, is because I was working mostly in the WordPress space, and I would never publish my plugins in the plugin repo because I was like, oh god, I'm going to have to support this. But then I started publishing, not necessarily plugins, but themes or other code around, and with the total not like with no intention to support, and
mhm,
only intention to do it when I felt like I wanted to. And it was like, I want this to be my selfish act. And I know if my selfish act is contributing to a project, whatever project that is, then I'm doing some good. And even if people are yelling at me, which they do, why aren't you supporting this? Or this is terrible. What are you doing? Like, the more I was able to ignore those people, the more I was able to experiment until I found a project like Equalify, which I'm currently working on, where like I love doing what I do every moment. And I can say in a weird way that like I don't do stuff that I don't love doing. And it's okay because I've been experimenting so much that the project is building on its own. Um, and you know, I find like that fear, once I got over it, it was really just getting over what other people thought about me because
mhm.
they were looking at my code and it wasn't finished or all these kind of things.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So great. Okay. Another question. What motivated you to create an open source accessibility tool?
I was working with a university before I left my last job, and the university told me that they had a choice of either contracting with SiteImprove, hiring SiteImprove, or hiring an accessibility expert. And they went with SiteImprove, and that blew my mind. Like, and it was a strictly budget problem. And for me, it's just like, as somebody who's worked in the internet and with accessibility for a greater part of a decade, like I couldn't understand it. Um, and I one of my contacts there, I said, well, like before you do this, if just tell me what you are doing from SiteImprove, what you actually want with them, and I will build it. Um, and so that started me building this. They ended up going with SiteImprove in the end, but it started me in building this tool. And a lot of business mentors have said, like, don't focus on the money thing. It shouldn't just be like, if some organizations just have budgets allocated, but like for me, it really was the money thing. I couldn't find, using tools that cost over $100,000. I couldn't find any reason why they should cost over $100 and $100,000. And that motivated me. And like, it still motivates me a bit now. Now I'm starting to see like why big organizations pay money, and that's mostly an insurance factor. But I still am motivated by creating a tool that somebody can literally just go to GitHub and start using.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. I think I used to work at local government, so I worked at a county for 13 years, and we just didn't have the budget to hire somebody like a SiteImprove. And so you're like your like Editorially you were talking about. He's actually going to speak for us in June,
Oh,
the
great.
creator. And then your product, those kinds of tools are great for those groups specifically because they can't afford that. And so I think it's really great for a niche group of people. And it's also great for even larger cases where they support open source, and they want to not support other groups. So very cool. Okay. Do you have an opinion about PenPot, an open source alternative to Figma?
No, I don't have an opinion. So I should preface this with I don't really do a lot of design anymore in design programs. Most of what I've decided to do for the last, I don't know, however long, Gutenberg has been a thing, which is a WordPress project that became the block editor. I decided that I wasn't going to use any UX development tool. So now I just do all my designing in a block editor. And usually it's WordPress, which is open source, which is totally open source. And I haven't gotten into PenPot, so I haven't, but I'll definitely look it out. I love trying anything open source, and Figma is a cool tool. So if it's trying to do the same but in an open source way, definitely power to them.
That's great. Okay. Do you have any tips on how or where folks can get involved and contribute to open source?
Yes. So I would definitely get a GitHub account, and I hate pushing a giant Microsoft company, but there's just all the open source projects are out there, and then once you're there, there's an issues tab on most projects, and in that issues tab is where you should be able to say, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know how to do this. What's wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, having a problem and bringing it to the issues tab, even if that problem is so basic with, I have no idea what this is talking about, but I just love the feeling behind it. Um, it's literally just starting a conversation. Um, and it's something that that it's really kind of scary to do because you're putting your face out there in a public way and saying, I don't know how to do this, or I don't, or you might, have that imposter syndrome or feel like you're stupid doing it. But the cool thing about open source projects, good open source projects in my book, is they are inclusive projects. So if you don't know something, folks should be able to answer you and help you and point you in the right direction. And that kind of knowledge gain, the first knowledge gain of I have no idea, can you please just point me in some direction, will lead to another knowledge gain, and that'll go down. That'll continue on. And at a certain point, you might realize, hey, this project isn't actually something I'm that interested in, or I'm not actually interested in coding. There's a lot of other ways to get involved. I've been involved with Drupal and WordPress, more WordPress lately. And those are also great communities to get involved with. WordPress has a really cool project called the Outreach Program. And if you just Google the WordPress Outreach Program, you can kind of start to get involved through that. And once you get involved with a big open source project like Drupal or WordPress, the thing I find amazing is how chaotic it actually is to create anything in one of these large infrastructures. And I think that's a good thing to learn to deal with and to be part of, because it allows you into a community, and you start to explore the community and find your little tribes and folks that you want to work with. And then you make friends out of that. And going back to why I love the work I do every day is I feel like I'm making new friends all over the world with completely different backgrounds based off of some of my weirdest, geekiest interests. And I have lots of little tribes of friends, and we all come together to build things. And that's a really cool aspect of open source.
Absolutely. I've been working in Drupal for a while now, and obviously that relates to open source, and it's been wonderful to find your people, find your community. So I won't look back to Windows. That's not coming back for me. So Have you thought about adding it as a module or plugin in Drupal or WordPress?
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
100%. In fact, we're currently, so like, we're very focused on this version 1. We don't even have a version 1 yet. But we've, I've been working on this for 2+ years, and we have workable versions that people can use and abuse. But our version 1 is really extensible, where we have lots of different services running instead of me just having this giant monolith like a giant WordPress. And then you could pick and choose how you want to use it. So for instance, with Drupal specifically, we have a person that's working on, a contributor working on our team, who wants to integrate reporting into as a Drupal reporting module. And they're leveraging just the scanning aspects of our tools. So one of like the big benefits of our tool is that we have a really robust scanning system. We can scan a bunch of pages very quickly. And when we scan, we not only find issues, but we also see where issues were fixed over time. And so that feature can be quickly brought into the Drupal module with our new version that's upcoming, that will have what will be focused on services versus what we call like a monolith. And I'm also working very closely with WordPress, because the WordPress accessibility is not where I hope it can be. And so with WordPress, what we're doing is we are basically scanning all of the websites that WordPress owns. So like all the entire public plugin directory and all like the community pages. And we're starting to integrate our tool into the way the WordPress contributors work. And this will be a longer process. I hope to have it done in the next year. But this would mean building out blocks and things that integrate Equalify. And like our hope, though, is like with this version 1, that developers can really use it where they think is meaningful. The vision of it is people shouldn't have to, go to the platform that Equalify built with the types of graphs that Equalify uses. You should be able to build your own platform, use your own type of graphs, and just leverage the technology where it's needed. So I highly suggest people, if you are a little bit more technical and want to check out our version 1, you can get in touch with me, and I'll download everything to you, or you can go to the GitHub. It's github.com/equalifyeverything is our organization, and we have a ton of different projects in there, from crawlers to scanners to an API and a new React-based front end.
That's great. I really love that. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I think this is the final question. Do you have a list of features that would benefit the web that are not open source? You mentioned detect flashing for epilepsy, but are there others that are lacking?
Yeah, so there are a lot of others that are lacking, and to like rattle them off right now, I have to kind of dig into my brain that is full of other things. But the reason I mentioned the tool that would detect blinking for epilepsy is there is a push to make a tool called I believe it's called the PEAT tool open source right now. And it's a really, really good tool that needs to be integrated with everybody's web service system. So like I'll just put special cred to that PEAT tool. And then there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I think that one of the big pieces that I'm seeing right now is a need to make screen readers better. There is the Nivea screen reader that is open source, but like a lot of the folks who I know who rely on screen readers are using JAWS instead. And so there are a lot of features that I think should be focused on for open source development. And then in my own kind of world with web accessibility, automated web accessibility testing, there are a ton of stuff. And like you can kind of look at what other proprietary solutions are doing, and then say they're doing that, but Equalify or XCCOR isn't doing these other things, and like just build them. Whatever it is, build them. Chrome extensions for manual testing are great. There's a ton of them.
That's great. I need to unmute myself. Very good. Thank you so much for answering all of those questions. There were a lot of great questions. So thank you
Great.
so much. And thank you so much for speaking for us. We really appreciate it. That was a lot of great information. I think we're going to have a lot of people that are very interested in contributing and checking out your tool and the other tools that you talked about. So we really appreciate that. So
Sweet.
thank you so much.
And look out for that Open A11y hashtag, because I say it here and say it now that like I'm going to be doing a lot of movement building around this. We should have more open source accessibility tools.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thanks a lot. And GAD Day is tomorrow. And actually, speaking of GAD, let's go ahead and talk about that. So, in case you weren't aware, Global Accessibility Awareness Day, or GAD, is happening tomorrow. GAD aims to spark conversations, foster understanding, and promote learning about digital accessibility and inclusion, particularly for the over 1 billion individuals with disabilities or impairments. So for many of us in the accessibility field, GAD serves as a valuable day for learning and giving back to the community. There are many GAD events you can be a part of, both virtual and in person. So you can dive into webinars, panels, and other sessions led by industry experts, all dedicated to spreading awareness and understanding of accessibility. So be sure to check out accessibility.day/events. And that's accessibility.day/events to find out what's happening in your area. Coming up tomorrow, actually, to celebrate GAD, May 16th at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, is going to be Sherry Bernhaber. Hopefully I pronounced that properly. And she's going to be speaking on improving accessibility through leveraging large language models, or LLMs. So mark your calendars. Again, that's tomorrow, May 16th at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Standard Time in the US. Coming up in June, we have John Jameson speaking, like I mentioned, on Editorially. His talk is titled Author-Friendly Content Quality Assurance with Editorially. And that one is going to be June 12th at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time as well. We're always looking for speakers and new voices in the accessibility community. We make a conscious effort to include marginalized groups in tech in our speaker lineup. If you're interested, please reach out to us at team@AllyTalks.com. That's team, TEAM, at AllyTalks.com, A11yTalks.com. For those with IAAP certifications, AllyTalks speakers and attendees receive professional development credits, or CAECs, through IAAP for your continuing education. We'd love your input as well, so please let us know if you have any ideas on how to make AllyTalks more friendly to all. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss a talk. That's youtube.com/c/accessibilitytalks. Consider contributing to AllyTalks through our Open Collective page. That's opencollective.com/AllyTalks. Follow us on Twitter or X, whatever they call it now, twitter.com/AllyTalks. Follow us on Mastodon. So that's mstdn.social/@AllyTalks. And that's it. Thank you for attending. We really appreciate it.